The Muslim Council of Britain has advised people to avoid large gatherings to celebrate Eid al-Fitr, telling Muslims in the UK to maintain social distancing measures instead. Traditionally, Eid is observed at the end of the holy month of Ramadan, with visits to friends and family and trips to the mosque for Eid prayers. But amid the coronavirus pandemic, government guidelines in the UK have closed places of worship for the past 9 weeks and placed heavy restrictions on socializing. The four nations of the UK, England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland have all implemented their own versions of the lockdown measures. Russia's COVID-19 case tally, the second highest in the world, passed 300,000 Wednesday, but a representative from the World Health Organization said the situation was starting to stabilize. Russia's 8,764 new novel coronavirus infections took the nationwide total to 308,705, but the daily increase was the lowest since May the 1st. Only the United States has reported more cases than Russia, though the Russian death rate remains much lower than any other country. The country's Coronavirus Response Center said the overall death toll edged up to 2,972 Wednesday, with 135 new fatalities reported in the past 24 hours. The United States said on Wednesday it would start delivering 200 medical ventilators this week to Russia, which has the world's second highest number of confirmed COVID-19 cases. Russia reported 9,263 new infections on Tuesday, pushing its total to 299,941 and 115 more fatalities, taking the total death toll to 2,937. Only the United States has reported more cases. It was the fourth successive day that the number of new cases was below 10,000. Prime Minister said on Monday Russia had halted the growth in infections and there were other positive signs. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres warned that the COVID-19 pandemic was threatening Africa's progress and could push millions into extreme poverty. Secretary General Guterres said in a video message Wednesday, launching a policy briefing on the impact of COVID-19 in Africa, that countries on the continent have responded swiftly to the crisis and as of now reported cases are lower than feared, with more than 2,500 deaths. But the UN chief said much hangs in the balance and called for international action to strengthen Africa's health systems, maintain food supplies, avoid a financial crisis, support education, protect jobs, keep households and business afloat, and cushion the continent against lost income and export earnings. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas says the Palestinian Authority will no longer be committed to any signed agreements with Israel or the United States, following Israel's pledge to annex large parts of the occupied West Bank. It was not immediately clear how the announcement, which was made at a Palestinian leadership meeting late Tuesday, would be implemented. The Oslo Accords and other agreements in the 1990s created the Palestinian Authority and govern its political, economic, and security relations with Israel. The president said Israel would now have to uphold responsibilities before the international community as the occupying power. The top UN official in Libya warned Wednesday that the war in the North African country will intensify broaden in Libya because of increasing foreign intervention and the massive influx of weapons, military equipment, and mercenaries to both sides. Acting UN Special Envoy Stephanie Williams said the escalation will have devastating consequences for the Libyan people who are getting lost in the mix, their voices crowded out. She urged the UN Security Council to apply consistent and credible measures on those regional and international actors that are fueling the conflict. Gunmen killed 14 people in 2 separate attacks in Afghanistan, while the Taliban targeted pro-government checkpoints in the northeast, killing 9 militiamen, officials said Wednesday, the latest in relentless violence that continues to plague the war-torn nation. The attacks came against the backdrop of renewed UN calls for an end to violence, and as Washington's Special Peace Envoy Zalmay Khalilzad embarked on another round of talks with the Taliban to press them to start negotiating with the newly reconciled Afghan political leadership in Kabul. In Parwan province, north of the capital Kabul, an unknown number of gunmen stormed the mosque late on Tuesday, killing 11 worshippers and wounding several others, said the spokeswoman for the provincial governor. Reports earlier in the day had stated that 8 were killed. Also late on Tuesday, gunmen in eastern Ghost province attacked a family returning home from a nearby mosque, killing 3 brothers. In both attacks, the gunmen fled the scene. No one claimed responsibility for either attack, and the Taliban promptly denied involvement. Authorities in Bangladesh have moved hundreds of Rohingya refugees living in a flood-prone island in the Bay of Bengal to storm shelters as Super Cyclone Amphan, the strongest recorded in the region, barrels down on Wednesday. The eastern edge of the storm, headed for Bangladesh and neighboring India, is expected to batter Bhasan Char Island, where 306 Rohingya members of persecuted minority from Myanmar were sent this month after being rescued from boats. A senior official of the Refugee Relief and Repatriation Commission said each block has a cyclone center and they have been moved to the center. The United Nations has called for the refugees to be moved to the mainland to join more than 1 million more who live in sprawling camps outside the town of Cox's Bazar. Voters are expected to head to the polls for Burundi's general election on Wednesday, which is going ahead despite threats posed by ethnic tensions, political violence, and the COVID-19 pandemic. Although there are 7 presidential candidates in the East African nation, the main contest is between Agathon Rwasa of the National Congress for Freedom and General Evariste of the ruling National Council for the Defense of Democracy Force for the Defense. Rwasa, who is 56 years old, is a former rebel leader who is also the Vice President of the National Assembly, while the other has held the positions of Interior and Security Minister as well as of Army Chief. Taiwan cannot accept becoming part of China under its one country, two systems offer of autonomy, President Tsai Ing-wen said on Wednesday in a strong rejection of China's sovereignty claim, but called for talks so that both sides could coexist. In a speech after being sworn in for her second and final term in office, President Tsai said that relations between Taiwan and China had reached a historical turning point. Leader Tsai and her Democratic Progressive Party won January's presidential and parliamentary elections by a landslide, vowing to stand up to China and claims Taiwan as its own and says it would be brought under Beijing's control by force if needed. Riot police were deployed in forces as youth set cars ablaze in some low-income housing estates in the Paris suburbs overnight. Online news reports and posting on media outlets showed on Wednesday amid tensions heightened by the COVID-19 lockdown. The latest unrest in the Valenu high-rise low-income neighborhoods flared after an 18-year-old died last weekend in a motorbike accident in the suburb. An investigation into the death of Sabri Choubi was ongoing, said the prosecutor's department for the district of Botsui, which handles judicial matters for the region. It added that initial findings did not show Choubi's motorcycle had been in a collision with a police car, as some of the victims' associates had alleged. European stocks slipped lower Wednesday and gold gained as a skeptical press report undermined some hopes for a COVID-19 vaccine and concern about obstacles to a recovery from the pandemic returned. Italian bonds sustained their multi-week close, continuing to gain from a Franco-German plan for a €500 billion coronavirus recovery fund, ignoring a hawkish counter-proposal in the works. Europe's STOXX 600 index was 1.6% lower. The blue chip FTSE 100 was low 0.4% as Rolls-Royce Holdings plunged 0.8% after it said it would cut 9,000 jobs and might close some of its factories. MSCI's broadcast index of Asia Pacific shares outside Japan edged up to 0.1%.